Nintendo. What comes to mind when you say the word Nintendo? It is known for its great library of exclusives, but that doesn't mean that they all hit the mark, right? Welcome to Chaos Gaming, everybody. Today we're going to check out some games that didn't hit the mark. Actually, the 25 worst Nintendo games ever made. Now, for this list, we're going to be looking at games Nintendo either developed or published, meaning those horrible CDI games are safe from this list, but because Nintendo really didn't have anything to do with them. I mean, if that sounds fair, guys, drop a like, make sure you're following the page, make sure you have those notifications on, and at number 25, Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Ugh. A game that, with absolutely no reason to exist. Let's be real. Released for the NES in '83. It's an educational game where you swing between vines to reach the correct answer to math problems. Now, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of great game companies, they thought educational games were the next big thing, but they quickly discovered they were wrong. Donkey Kong Math Junior Math, it sucked. It's a great way to start today's list, let's be honest. At number 24, Yoshi's New Island. The game could have been so much more. It was released for the 3DS in early 2014. It didn't get good reviews from critics or gamers. You're once again, yes, playing as Yoshi, going through platforming levels while escorting baby Mario, who needs to just go away forever. It was extremely similar to the original Yoshi's Island on the Super NES, but that's not a great thing. The original had charm. It had personality. But Yoshi's New Island, it felt like it was just going through the motions with little fun factor included. It's not offensively bad or anything, but you're going to forget about it within a few minutes of finishing it. At number 23, Cruisin' World, the N64 version. Now, you may remember the cruising games in the arcades. They were some of the most popular racing games in the world. But, due to the popularity, guess what? Nintendo scooped up the rights to the console port, and they published the N64 version in 1998, and it probably should have stayed in the arcades. Nintendo's version of Cruisin' World was extremely simple. It didn't look nearly as good as the arcade original. It got really boring really quick. Now, the cruising games were one of my favorite arcade racers back in the day, but the N64 version avoided at all costs. At number 22, Mario Party 9. Now, Mario Party, to me, has lost its way during the Wii and the Wii U era. 9 dropped in early 2012. It was met with pretty poor reviews from critics and gamers. For once, they agreed. Had some radical changes to the series formula. Many fans weren't exactly happy about it, especially because the changes, well, they were bad. Now, everyone has their own idea of what the best Mario Party game is. There's no matter who you ask, it's going to be different. But you will never, ever, ever, ever ask someone to tell you Mario Party 9 is their favorite, because they won't. Speaking of that, number 21, Mario Party 10. Now, you would think Nintendo would take the criticism to heart, but they actually did the opposite. Yep. It's seen by many as the worst in the entire franchise because of all the pointless changes made to the formula, as well as the fact that most of the problems with Mario Party 9 were copied over with minimal correction. Now, I guess it was inevitable that this would happen because you can only put the same game out so many times before you run out of minigame ideas, but Mario Party 10, I feel that was the low point. At number 20, Metroid Other M. Now, the Metroid series has been rather consistent throughout the years, but the last big Metroid game was Other M. It was released for the Wii all the way back in 2010. So why was it the last one in the series so far? Because it was a huge slap in the face. Not only was the gameplay underwhelming and boring, but the story was complete nonsense, and Samus's character was utterly assassinated. Now, this strong, awesome bounty hunter was turned into a whiny, wimpy, and annoying side character who constantly needs help from other characters to do anything. Other M was a disaster. Most players have rightly forgotten it even exists. At number 19, Pokemon Rumble U. It's weird. Following the success of games like Skylanders, Disney Infinite, Nintendo, they felt the need to jump in the Pokemon equivalent, right? So released for the Wii U in 2013, it was an action game where you get into big, simple fights with other characters, and you try to unlock more characters and maybe also go buy some plastic figures while you're at it. It flopped. It didn't take long for the whole business model to be abandoned. Nintendo had great success with Amiibos, but the Pokemon Rumble figures? Nah. At number 18, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Now, Animal Crossing is a very popular franchise and people love it, but it hasn't always been perfect. Amiibo Festival was a Mario Party knockoff, released for the Wii U in late 2015, and the presentation was cool. The gameplay, though, it was painfully generic, and it just served as this quick cash grab for Nintendo while they worked on the next thing they actually cared about. Let's be real. Amiibos are cool. Once games start to be built around them, the red flags start to pop up. At number 17, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I'm going to get some hate here. Let's be real with each other, though. it's the worst Smash game. Smash 64, super fun experiment. Melee, hyper technical, ultra fast fighter, still popular in esports to this day. But then there was Brawl. Nintendo wanted to make Brawl a little less oppressive to new players compared to Melee, which meant deleting tons of mechanics, adding way more RNG to the mix, and dramatically slowing down the movement, which it screwed up the balancing of the characters, like Meta Knight, Ice Climbers. They were blatantly overpowered. Today, nobody looks back on Brawl with fond memories. Yes, we may remember the single player as being surprisingly good, or maybe we remember the popular Project M fan mod, but nobody is reminiscing about the Brawl days. This, to me, was Smash's low point. At number 16, Star Fox Zero. Now, Star Fox Zero was released for the Wii U as a way to bring the franchise back into the spotlight. After all, it had been dormant since the GameCube days, and people really only know the characters from Smash, right? Unfortunately, Star Fox Zero was mediocre in every sense of the word. I mean, it was very short, very simple, not a single original bone in its body. It was quickly forgotten by the gaming world as a whole. It's not the worst game on the list by any means, but it was super underwhelming, and Star Fox has once again faded into obscurity. At number 15 today, Disney's Magical Mirror starring Mickey Mouse. Released almost 20 years ago. It was developed by Capcom but published by Nintendo, which makes it eligible for this list. The game is loosely based on an old Mickey Mouse cartoon, and most of Mickey's animations in the games are ripped straight from the old 1930s cartoons. It's pretty awesome detail, but that's really only the positive thing you're going to find. It's shallow, it's repetitive, and it's unfinished, so there's many sections where you just don't have instructions on what to do next. For something with both the Disney and Nintendo stamp of approval, it was a pretty bizarre low-effort cause. At number 14, Mario Party Advance. I said 9 and 10 were the worst Mario Party's games. I lied. Mario Party Advance is almost unanimously considered to be the worst one, largely due to the pointlessness. It was released for the Game Boy Advance in 2005. You could probably imagine the problems that arose when you try to make a Mario Party game into a handheld experience, especially on a system with no online play. There's only so much you could do with mini-games designed for a handheld system. I mean, it had this weird focus on the single player, but who plays Mario Party for single player? The game was weird. It was weird. At number 13, Metroid Prime Federation Force. I don't even know why this game was called Metroid Prime. You don't play as Samus, the levels are linear, and the gameplay is more about shooting than exploration, and there's a soccer minigame for no reason at all. Seriously, let me repeat that. This game with Metroid Prime in the title has a soccer minigame. Federation Force is a bizarre game, and not in a good way. It sucked. Metroid fans really haven't been able to catch a break over the last couple decades, and I'm sorry, because I'm a fan too. At number 12, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Who remembers back in the mid-2000s when Nintendo was trying to make a racing game for everything? Well, here's Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, a racing game based on the DK universe, and it's about as pointless as you could imagine. It's a low-effort Mario Kart ripoff, but with Donkey Kong characters, most of whom have already been in Mario Kart. It didn't even have as much content as a Mario Kart game, so seriously, what was the point? It sucked. At number 11, Pokemon Dash. Speaking of pointless racing games, Pokemon Dash, released in 2004 for the Nintendo DS, and most of you probably didn't even know it existed. Seriously, a Pokemon racing game. Why? I don't know. The single-player content was extremely limited, and you could only play as Pikachu in those sections. Then, if you wanted to play multiplayer, you had to deal with the notoriously unreliable DS connections. It was lame. If you played it, you know what I'm talking about. Now we've reached the top 10 worst Nintendo games ever. Here we go. Star Fox Adventures. Now, this game got decent reviews upon release in 2002. It was retroactively labeled as one of Nintendo's worst games. Here's why. It technically was an impressive game, especially for the GameCube. Gameplay, writing, voice acting, though, it was bad. I can't get into much detail in the video, but the short version is the game started development as something completely different, but after Nintendo saw that, they basically said, hey, make it a Star Fox game. And the devs just had to make it happen. Star Fox Adventures isn't a bad game, but it feels nothing like Star Fox. At number 9, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. Even when Nintendo misses the mark, they at least have the decency to finish the game before launch most of the time. Well, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash legitimately feels unfinished. It's by far the worst in the entire Mario Tennis sub-series. So why is it unfinished, you ask? Well, here we go. It barely had any characters, didn't have any content, didn't have any modes, had one stadium, shallow gameplay. Seriously, do I need to go on? It legitimately feels like they finished the engine and the gameplay, but then they said screw it and skipped whatever they had to do after that. It was a complete ripoff. At number 8, Paper Mario Sticker Star. Released in 2012, Sticker Star is often seen as one of the worst games in the Paper Mario franchise, which is a franchise that Nintendo just can't figure out what to do with. Paper Mario had a phenomenal start back in the day, but ever since the Wii era, it just can't get the ball going. It launched on the 3DS, and it did have a handful of good elements, but it was heavily criticized for its drastic changes to the formula, which pushed it even further away from what people liked about the original Paper Mario game. So, if you're Nintendo in this situation, what do you do in response to the criticism, right? You take notes and you make adjustments, right? Wrong. Number 7, Paper Mario Color Splash. A few years after Sticker Star, we get Color Splash, which doubled down on all the things people disliked about the other one. Shocker, it didn't end well. Now, Color Splash certainly had pretty graphics. It was fun to look at. The gameplay was bad, though. The combat was completely unbalanced, and the XP system from previous games was removed for no reason. The first 2 to 3 Paper Mario games are fantastic, but ever since then, it's been weird. Hopefully Nintendo gets back on track one day, but Sticker Star and Color Splash, that was a bit of a dark age for Paper Mario. At number 6, Wii Play. Back when the Wii came out, tons of people had Wii Play, but nobody actually liked it. That's because Nintendo made this cheeky decision to bundle a Wii remote with the game, so people logically thought, well, I'll just buy the game with the remote included, so that way I don't have to buy a second remote for the console. Yeah. Wii Play is one of the worst Nintendo exclusives ever released, and it wasn't bundled with an extra Wii remote. If it wasn't, it would have been in the top 5. It was a minigame collection where most of the minigames were simple, and a good chunk of them were boring. Now, despite getting horrible reviews from critics and gamers, it did sell 28 million copies because it came with a Wii remote. Well played, Nintendo. At number 5, Pokemon Battle Revolution. The game that could have been great. People were hyped. It was the first Pokemon game released for the Wii, and the whole gimmick was the fact that it was the first time ever people could battle other players online in a Pokemon game. You could even link your Pokemon Diamond and Pearl accounts to Battle Revolution and give yourself more stuff to do. So what could go wrong? Well, it seems Battle Revolution's sole purpose was to be an online Pokemon game. The actual gameplay and the RPG elements were either drastically toned down or they were just flat removed, making this quite barren for a $60 experience. The online aspect was criticized. There was hardly any ways to play the game online. It wasn't uncommon for it just not to work. It was an interesting prototype, but it shouldn't have came out. And there's no reason it should have had a $60 price tag on it. At number 4, Wii Music. Now, when the Wii came out, Nintendo released a handful of games to try to show off what the system was capable of. Wii Sports, Wii Fit, very successful. Wii Music, no. You were supposed to use the Wii Remote to conduct a band and create original music, but the gameplay was so basic and the music available to you was just public domain stuff, so there was only so much you could do. It also didn't help since it was an early Wii game, the motion controls didn't work right. It was essentially a glorified tech demo that you had to pay for. At number 3, WarioWare Snapped. WarioWare is a decent series, right? It's a minigame compilation with a unique attitude that helps set it apart from Mario Party. But in 2008, Nintendo gave us WarioWare Snapped, which released on the DS Digital Store. Now, compared to other games in the series, it was simple. Way less content. There weren't even boss stages anymore. There was a lot of issues with the game's graphics, as the color scheme sometimes made it hard to see what you were supposed to do. And the minigames that used the DSi's camera, well, it was a coin toss whether they would work. It just shouldn't have came out. At number 2 today, Devil's Third. Now, this is one of the weirdest things Nintendo has ever put their name on. It's violent, vulgar, gory, hack and slash. Developed and published by none other than Nintendo as a Wii U exclusive. So, I guess Nintendo was trying to make the Wii U more hardcore and edgy? I don't know. It was supposed to bring the hardcore gamers over to their side, but it didn't work. Devil's Third is a complete mess. Aside from the obvious things like the bad graphics and the horrible optimization, the game wasn't fun. The mechanics were generic, the story was nonsense, and the controls were so bad you had to wonder if they were even designed by a human being. Some people remember Devil's Third as being one of those so bad it's good games. No, not this time. It was just bad. But the worst. At number 1 today on the top 25 worst Nintendo games ever made, 1-2 Switch. One of the biggest ripoffs. Yes, a launch title for the Switch full of minigames they're meant to show off the new hardware, similar to Wii Sports. But, unlike Wii Sports, which was bundled with the console, 1-2 Switch was a separate game that would cost you $60. Also, unlike Wii Sports, 1-2 Switch was awful. The minigames were basic, they were uninspired, they had technical issues, the Joy-Cons didn't work right. Did I mention it was $60? If you ask me, this is the worst Nintendo game ever released. You may disagree, but when you factor in the lack of effort and the absurd price tag on this thing, I think it's fair. Let me know where we got it right, guys. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.